If you're watching this video, it's because you're already retired or probably retiring soon, and you have questions about Social Security on how they affect you or you and your spouse. So by the end of this video, you're going to have a much better handle on how Social Security works and the different options and how you can better make the best, most informed Social Security timing decision. So I am the Council of Financial Education. This form here, I am the instructor for North Florida and South Georgia. We are local. We live and work here in Tallahassee. My company name, I am an advisor, a financial advisor, is Preservation Financial Group. But this is an educational only meeting. This is just to give you education and information, and hopefully you can take a lot of notes and take this with you. So the couple parts tonight, we're going to cover Social Security and then retirement income planning, and then I'll move away from the retirement income planning and list some mistakes that I've seen over the past. I'll be 60 in February, so I've been an advisor for this is my 37th year. So I want to give you this good information, but I'm going to go through the Social Security book, retirement income planning, and then put some mistakes and some things to hopefully solve problems for you that you can take with you. When I'm done this evening, some people ask me, so we offer a complimentary meeting at our office if it's something you want. If it's something you don't want, it's no problem. You can check no. We're not going to call you. We're not going to write to you. We'll put you on the newsletter list if you want to, but I can assure you the goal of this evening is to give you information. One of the words that has the biggest meaning to me in life is application. I like application when I learn something. So I'm going to try to give you stuff that you can apply to your financial life and retirement, and hopefully will help you. As a matter of fact, 3 main questions that people ask, whether it's Social Security or retirement income planning. They say, when can I retire? Will my money last? And will my family be well taken care of if I go before them? So those are three things that we're going to also talk about. So let's go ahead and dive in as we cover Social Security first. All right, so an average earner, the average American, will need 80 to 90% of their pre-retirement income during their retirement years. Up here in the upper right, you could put, for the average American, 40% of their income in retirement comes for Social Security. Yours may be different, but this is for the average person, 40%. Whereas the other 60% for their income in retirement comes from other sources, which we'll look at. So there are 7 Social Security strategies. There are 81 age combinations, and there are 567 sets of calculations. So there's 567 sets to consider when determining how and when to apply for Social Security benefits. The difference between the best and the worst possible decision of when to start Social Security can be well over, the answer is $150,000. So the biggest difference can be $150,000. That's why we want to try to get this right, give you information. Hopefully it's going to help you. The number one question retirees ask, or the number one fear that most people, boomers in America, have, what's the number one thing money provides to people? Security. And what's the number one fear, do you think, that people have regarding their money? Yeah, running out of money. Okay, so we want to make sure you're not one of them. That's why we do Social Security planning and tie it in with retirement income planning. At the bottom of the page, it says 60% of Americans are worried or very worried about not being able to maintain their current standard of living, much less enjoy their retirement. Let's make sure that you're not one of them. When I download my statement and I look at it, there's a mistake on mine. It shows there's a year, says 0, no income, which is not correct. Now, do you think it's fun trying to get that corrected with Social Security? I can tell you that's an exercise now, okay? So if you check your earnings, make sure there's not a mistake, and if there is, you'll have to go through the steps to do that, but make sure you double check that, okay? Now, let's jump down here under noteworthy. Let me give you some terms that are a little bit different in how they define them. The first line there is an eligible. An eligible worker is one who has accumulated the minimum number of quarters of work for Social Security benefits and is at least 62 years old. Eligible worker. The next word, entitled. An entitled worker is one who has applied for benefits. That's what it means. So the way you would use the vernacular just in the English language, sometimes when we're talking about Social Security, it's a little bit different context. Entitled worker. That's a worker who's applied for benefits, whether or not they are receiving the benefits or have suspended them. Sometimes with Social Security, for some people, you could actually file and then suspend, but we won't get into that right now. Okay, well, I'll touch on that a little bit later. All right, down below there, these terms are important Being entitled both allows and disallows various benefits. So the first word there is an acronym WEP. This stands for the Windfall Elimination Provision. Is anybody a federal employee in here? Okay, federal, sometimes some federal employees don't pay into Social Security, and the windfall elimination provision could reduce your benefit if you receive a pension from work where Social Security taxes were not taken out of your paycheck. The second blank there, GPO, or Government Pension Offset. You say, Pete, what does that mean? This reduces your spouse's or widow's or widower's benefits if you receive a pension from a federal, state, or local government based on work where you did not pay Social Security taxes. Government pension offset. COLA, cost of living adjustment. In 2023, the cost of living adjustment at the beginning of this year, in January, was 8.7%. Every year, the IRS calculates the cost of living adjustment, or COLA, based on the increase in the Consumer Price Index from the third quarter 3 years ago through the third quarter of the prior year. Historically, it is averaged to be about 4.1% per year. COLA, in effect, provides inflation protection by helping to maintain some of the purchasing power of this piece of your retirement income. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you in this room believe your expenses with food, fuel, and housing have gone up more than 8.7%. How many of y'all believe that? Okay, because the Consumer Price Index, it does not count food, fuel, and aspects of housing. And what are the three things that go up the most? Food, fuel, and housing. So it is understated, but that's what the Consumer Price Index does. Many years ago, it used to include all of those things. They changed the formula. Let's look at claiming age. Let's say you're saying, well, Pete, when should I start? Or what are some things I should think about? So here are three categories here. On the left, your age, the first blank there is 62. There are pros and cons to Social Security choices, and there's pros and cons with investments. There's pros and cons to automobiles, vehicles. There's pros and cons to everything. Life's all about trade-offs. So everything we're going to talk about here, we're going to try to cover the trade-offs. So the first thing is 62. What's the advantage? What's the pro? You receive your benefits earlier. Things you want to do, maybe there's a tough situation, life expectancy, those types of things. What's the downside? It's your smallest monthly check. There's a possible reduction penalty if you're employed. We'll look at that in just a moment. The next one is age 66 or 67. For most of you in this room, for most of us, the full retirement age is going to be between 66 and 67. What's the advantage? Well, it's a higher monthly check. There's no penalty if you're going to be working, employed. What's the downside? Well, you wouldn't get a check from age 62 up to your full retirement age. Next one down, age 70. Highest monthly check, no penalty if employed. What's the downside? No benefits from 62 to 70. Claiming age. Claiming benefits at age 62 would allow you to receive your benefits earlier, but will permanently reduce your lifetime benefits by how much? Anybody know? How much?
30%.
Very good, yes, 25%. So it's 25%. Is that a temporary reduction if you get to age 70, or is it a lifetime reduction? Lifetime reduction. Depending on the year you're born, you may be subject to a reduction penalty, and if you're employed, which we'll cover. If you choose to wait to your full retirement age at 66 or 67, you would receive 100% of your primary insurance amount. That's the words they use, primary insurance amount. And you would not be penalized if you wait to full retirement age. All right, if you choose to wait to file until after your full retirement age, your monthly benefits would increase by approximately, anybody know? 8% per year. If you get 8% per year from your full retirement age up, then at the latest age you can claim is age 70. And your monthly benefit, if it had grown for 4 years, would be approximately 132%. 8% times 4 is 32. 132% of your primary insurance amount, your full retirement age. There is no advantage to waiting to claim benefits past age 70. Some more different terms just for Social Security. First one, deemed filing. What does that mean? Requires that a claimant filing for any benefit before their full retirement age must file for all benefits available to them at that time. Second word, restricted application. If anybody in this room is born before and married, born before January 1st, 1954, let me know afterward because you might be eligible for a restricted application. This is available to workers who have reached their full retirement age and allows them to restrict their application to just one of the benefits they're eligible for. I had a lady and her husband come in and see me after a program a while back, and she was working at Florida State and teaching, and she was older than her husband, and she met the age qualification here. And I said, did you know that you haven't drawn for Social Security, but did you know that you could file half against your husband's, keep working, because she was 68, so she could file against her husband, get half his benefit, and let her own benefit continue to grow and increase. But she didn't know that. So there are mistakes. We're trying to catch them. I just try to give you a few stories. The next one is voluntary suspension. What's that? It's available to workers who have reached their full retirement age. They file for benefits and simultaneously suspend the payments. Well, Pete, I'm thinking about working. Anybody thinking about working in retirement? How many of y'all are going to work in retirement? Is that more and more common because of inflation and stuff? Yep. Getting more common. Just in case you were thinking about drawing early and you wanted to make sure you're not penalized, let me show you how the offset penalty works. So under age 62 up to your full retirement age, you can draw early, and you can earn up to $21,240. If you make over $21,240 and you file early, they are going to reduce your benefit. For every $2 over the limit, $1 is withheld from your benefits. So if you're going to make over that amount, you probably don't want to draw early. There's another tier, another level. If you're between 62 up to your full retirement age, so you're still under your full retirement age. You make over $56,520, you have a different reduction for that limit. Is now for every $3 over the limit, $1 is withheld from your benefits. Now after your full retirement age, what's the penalty for working? No penalty, right? No penalty. You're good to go. What about taxes? You're thinking, now Pete, whether you're single or you're married, how does Social Security how is it taxed? Let me explain that to you. So the word they use is provisional income if you're single, and I'll show you what provisional income means. Provisional income means all the things you would count to get up to the dollar limits I'm going to show you. I'll list them out for you in a moment. So the first one, if you're single and you make under $25,000, 0% of your Social Security benefits are taxed. If you make between 25 and 34, then up to half of your benefits are taxed. If you make over 34,000, up to 85%. If you're married filing joint, under 32, 0. 32 to 44, half of it's taxed. Over 44,000, up to 85% is taxed, okay? Does anybody know when they started taxing Social Security? Remember what FDR said during the fireside chats? Well, you and I weren't there around then, right? But you know, you've heard about the fireside chats with FDR. One thing he said he would never tax Social Security. Well, he didn't, but somebody else did. They started in the 90s, about 94. Almost 30 years. They've been taxing Social Security. Reducing tax liability on benefits. Postpone receiving your Social Security benefits is one thing you can do, either by waiting to file or by suspending your claim for later years in which your other incomes are lower. You can reduce other sources of income calculated in provisional income. So provisional income is just the fancy word for this big basket, and I'm going to tell you everything you put in the basket that counts towards your Social Security taxation, okay? So let me list these out for you. Wages. If you're working, you're a W-2 or 1099 person with earnings, income, that counts. 401k and IRA distributions. If you take money out of a qualified plan, IRA, 401k, 403b, if you're federal, thrift savings plan or TSP for short, all those retirement plans. Interest and dividend income. If you have stocks you own outside of a retirement plan, the dividend income or interest income from a CD or at the bank, that all counts towards the provisional income. Capital gains tax. So either short-term or long-term. If you sold a piece of property, probably not your primary residence because you can have some tax-free money on that. If you sold a piece of property or a stock that's outside of a retirement plan and you have a capital gain, you got to count the capital gain towards the tax. Pension payments. If you receive a pension, you got to count that towards provisional income. Inheritance. What about tax-free municipal bonds? If they're tax-free, do they count towards the taxation of your Social Security?
Yes.
Yes, that's right. That's okay. Tax-free municipal bonds, they're federal tax, income tax-free, but they count in provisional income. How about the Roth IRA? When you pull money out of a Roth IRA, do you pay tax on that? No. Does it count towards Social Security taxation? No, it does not. So that is good. By the way, do you know what tax rates are doing January of 2026? They're increasing, okay? So if you haven't already started to look at possibly converting some of your IRA or 401k or 403b money to the Roth IRA, you might want to consider that. That might save you federal tax down the road and help you with the Social Security calculation. Spousal benefit options. You have an individual benefit, real simple. Each spouse collects their individual benefit. Number 2, spousal benefit. A lower earning spouse collects up to half of the high earner's full benefit, must have been age 62 by December 31st, 2015, which would allow a restricted application filing at your full retirement age. That was the story I just told you about the lady, the professor lady that came in to see me with her husband. Option 3 is a survivor benefit. A widowed spouse collects up to 100% of the deceased spouse's benefit. So when a married couple, one passes away, they retain the higher of the two. So some important aspects to know about spousal benefits. In order to claim a spousal benefit, you must be at least how old? Anybody know? 62, that's correct. And you got to be married how long? There is a 10-year rule. Everybody said that in this rule right here, good guess, it's 1 year. Okay, you got married for at least 1 year. If you elect to receive a spousal benefit before you reach your full retirement age, your benefit will be permanently reduced unless you have a qualifying dependent child. If you start your own regular benefit early and switch to a spousal benefit when you reach full retirement age, you may not receive the full spousal amount. Social Security will subtract your full benefit amount from the spousal benefit and add the difference to your reduced benefit amount. The result could be less than 50% of your spouse's benefit. All right, can I give you the boiled down version? If you draw early in combination with a spouse, you're going to have a permanent reduction on up. All right, let's look at the next page. In the event of a divorce. If you are divorced, you may be entitled to a spousal Social Security benefit if you are at least 62 years old. And you've been married for how long?
10 years.
10 years, yes ma'am, good job. You're unmarried, your ex-spouse is entitled. What that means here, you might be saying, yeah, my ex-spouse felt entitled, but that's not what we mean. Okay, that's not what we meant here. Yes, Pete, that was the whole problem. No, that's not what we mean. We mean with a worker who has applied for benefits. Now, you may be independently entitled without your ex-spouse being entitled if your ex-spouse is 62 or older. Your divorce has been final for at least 2 years, and your own worker benefits would be less than 50% of your primary insurance amount. Independently entitled. Survivor benefit options. If you're widowed or a widower, you are eligible to collect either your own benefits or 100% of your deceased spouse's benefit, whichever is greater. You've got to be at least 60 years old. You must have been married for at least 9 months or 10 years if divorced. You remain unmarried until after the age of 60. According to the 2014 census, there were about 54,956 centenarians in the United States alone. Now, what percent do you think were women?
90.
81%. Is that fair?
Sure.
That's just the way it is, right? That's the way it is. Yeah, it's the way the good Lord made it. While not all of us will celebrate our 100th birthday, statistically, women outlive men by 5 to 10 years. So here's another mistake I caught, not in this example, but I just thought of it, so I want to tell it to you before I forget. I had another lady come in to see me. She said, Pete, I'm married, but I live on this side of town, here in town, and my husband, he lives in a house on the other side of town. So we're technically married, but we don't live together. We're separated, okay? Now, she was older than he. She went into Social Security. She drew benefits first. She never thought to go back after a few years later if he filed. She came in and she said, Pete, I live here in this house on this side of town. My husband lives over here, and I went in to file for Social Security. I've been collecting for years. And I said, now, when your husband, who made more money than she did, when he went to file, did you go back into Social Security to see if you'd be eligible for more against his earning record collecting half? She said, no, I have not. So I said, let's get you scheduled to do that. So she went back into Social Security. She got a higher amount, and she got a check for about $11,000. So they didn't make up everything, but we fixed the problem for the rest of her life. So just make sure as I'm going through, if there are things that you think we could tweak and you need a little bit of help, let us know. It's not everybody has that problem. It does happen, and it happens too often, and we want to try to correct them. Let's say you say, I want to change my Social Security. Can I do this over? The answer is yes. You can do it once in a lifetime, but you have to request it within 1 year of initially filing a claim. You must pay back all benefits received for both the individual and the spouse, if applicable. How would you do that? You would go onto socialsecurity.gov and you find Form 521, request for withdrawal of application. Start, stop, restart strategy. Can you do that? Yes. You must reach full retirement age or later to suspend your benefits. Maybe you had a change of heart and said, you know what, this money opportunity or job opportunity came my way. I want to just go back to suspending my benefits, let them grow. You can do that. How much are they going to grow per year from full retirement age? 8% per year. You can restart your benefits at any time. Suspended benefits grow by 8% per year up to age 70, like we said. If benefits are not restarted until age 70, monthly payments will be approximately 32% higher because you got 8% per year for those 4 years in that example. And that's for the rest of your life. There's no additional growth or no benefit deferring past age 70. Make sure that you and your loved ones start by age 70. How old is the oldest person you know? A man turning 65 today can expect to live to approximately 84. A woman turning 65, they've got it here listed, to expect to live to age 86 or longer. How long will you need to receive Social Security income? What about your surviving spouse? What's your best estimate? That's why we dovetail retirement income planning with this in a moment. All right, let's go to our case study. If I had shown you this on PowerPoint, it's a ton of slides, so I'm going to give you the boiled down version. And by the way, if I showed PowerPoint and I turned the lights down low, what might you do here? Go to sleep? So we can't have that. We got to have you participating, right? Because this stuff is so exciting. All right, so this is a study between Mike and Rebecca. Mike and Rebecca, you know what they did? They went to this website called livingto100.com and they entered all this information and it determined, it gave them an estimated life expectancy. So for Mike, he's born January 2nd, 56. His primary insurance amount at his full retirement age is $2,056. His expected death age is a little over 84. Rebecca's date of birth, November 2nd, 56. Her primary insurance amount was $1,682 at age 66, and her expected death age is at 87. Now, the difference between the most maximized strategy and the least for Mike and Rebecca, I'm going to give you the dollar amount in a moment. But as you're looking at this, on the left-hand side of your page, the bar graph with the most money they receive and the least amount, what do you think is the biggest key to the strategy for them to get the most money? Okay, so here's the answer. If they delayed, the more you delay, the more money you're going to get. But I'm not trying to make a case for delaying. That's not my point. I'm just telling you what our, we can give you a Social Security report, which is something we'd be glad to do because you're here. But the biggest difference is starting later and then living to life expectancy. See, if I knew the day that you and I were going to pass, I could really nail this plan for you, right? But we don't know that, right? So we're trying to do the best we can with what we got. I had a lady in my office just this afternoon who came to a program last week, and she said, my husband has such and such, and so we're not sure. So he started drawing at an earlier age. So there's just all personal items that we wouldn't talk about in a group. But the bottom line, I just want you to have the best information to make the best decision for you in your household. Okay, so the answer is the difference between the most maximized strategy for Mike and Rebecca and the least is $154,253. $154,253. Now that may sound like a no-brainer, but do we really know what Mike and Rebecca's financial conditions are? Do they need to draw Social Security at 62? Can they wait to full retirement age, or can they wait to age 70? Just depends on the things you want to do. Your hopes, your dreams, your time. So many people tell me they're excited about retirement or when they can slow down because now they get their, as one lady said, my 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock back. Now I can do whatever I want to do. And I've been thinking about this for 40 plus years, right? Any of y'all feel like that? So 41% of baby boomers and Gen Xers are projected to lack adequate retirement income for their basic retirement expenses and uninsured healthcare costs. I think that number is going up significantly because of inflation being so high. How do you determine a strategy? Really begins with a few different questions, really simple questions, things that you would already know. Number one is, what are my monthly income needs, or what are my current income needs? Number two, what sources do I have? Number three, how do I close the gap between those two things? So what are my current income needs monthly, for example? What sources do I have? Pensions, investments, other things than Social Security? And how do I close the gap between the two? This is what we're going to look at. This is a cash flow worksheet. Sure you have one of these, but we threw one in there for you. What do you anticipate your retirement income needs will be? Calculating all of your expenses will provide you with your current income need. Most retirees require anywhere from 80 to 90% of their pre-retirement income after they stop working. Your Social Security benefit will provide some of this income. Typically, we said at the beginning, how much did we say? 40%. I bet you were a good student in class. No, you were that A's. Here's the other thing I want you to think about. When you're retired, maybe you're doing this yourself, maybe you have somebody helping you, or if you need some help. Do you have a tax efficient way to start making withdrawals when you retire? Because one of the things, whether you've thought about it or not, for some of you, for most of you, remember, at some point in time, you go from accumulating money in your accounts and you step over and then you go to a distribution. Whether it's mandatory or not. Eventually you go from accumulating and saving to you come over and you start taking distributions. Do you have a tax efficient way to do that? That's just something I want you to think about. I wonder if you've done any homework on that and if you've looked at, like, for example, the Roth IRA strategy to help you out. What are your retirement dreams? Do you have some exciting things that you want to do? I meet it's one thing I really love what I do. I sit down and meet a lot of really interesting people like y'all. And we get to know them through the years. And there's so many stories. I have one couple, every year they would go to South Dakota and they would volunteer in the Custer National Park and they would herd wild buffalo and camp out for the summer and meet people and take pictures and have a blast. Incredible scenery, all kinds of things. What are your hobbies? What are your dreams? When will retirement start for you? How long will your retirement last? So here's a few questions I just throw in here. You could write in the bottom if you're a note taker. A couple basic things, but I want you to think about it. Is number one, will you have enough money? Will you have enough money to do the things you want to do? And regarding your monthly income, does it need to be guaranteed or is it okay if it's a maybe? So for the money that you're going to need to supplement Social Security with, does that money need to be guaranteed or is it okay if it's a maybe? Because there's two types of income. There's guaranteed income and non-guaranteed income. Just important that you know that and you plan for that. We'll cover a little bit more of that when we get to risk. Okay, the next page, key issues to consider when retiring early. Obviously, there's a shorter time to accumulate assets, longer distribution period, especially if you live a long time. There's an impact on your monthly Social Security income because if you draw early, there's a penalty. You have health care before you get to Medicare age, before you get to age 65. And there's an impact, or there could be an impact on your pension if you have a pension at work. So a couple questions here in this slide I would add on is number one, when will you retire? And number two, will the performance of the stock market dictate if or when you retire? So a couple questions here. Number one, when will you retire? Number two, will the performance of the stock market dictate if or when you can retire? Key issues to consider when delaying retirement. More accumulation of assets over time, a shorter distribution period, you have an impact on your monthly Social Security. You have to also plan on dying too soon, especially if you're married, because that involves making a Social Security decision. If you draw early and you have a penalty and then you have a surviving spouse, that might be less money to the surviving spouse. All those things we have to look at. Today's reality for many baby boomers working during retirement, 75% of workers age 50 and older expect to have jobs in retirement. 75%. Why? What are the reasons why people work in retirement? Obviously include earn more money for a comfortable retirement. Some people would be bored if they're not working. Those working in retirement are highly satisfied and engaged in their work. Their earnings reduce stress on their personal savings. You have potential, maybe more potential access to health care before you reach Medicare age of 65. You have an effect on the monthly Social Security income because you're delaying, so that amount's growing. Remaining engaged in personal relationships. Okay, next slide below. Boomers are living longer in retirement. We already discussed that. According to Social Security, a man 65 can live until age 84 after. The average woman age 65 can expect to live to 86 and a half or longer. And those are just the averages. By the way, that lady down there with the cap on and flexing, that's my assistant Karen over in Panama City. No, I'm just kidding. That's not really her. I'm just teasing. She's fantastic, though. I want to make sure you're awake. She is a wonderful person, let me tell you. We love having Karen in the office. We are so thankful for her. She's great, but no, that's not really her. I'm just teasing. And those are just averages, okay? 1 out of every 3 65-year-olds will live past age 90. Did you know that? 1 out of 7 will live past age 95. This is for the average retiree. This isn't perfect, but there's 3 stages of retirement. So when you're looking at your goals, there's the 3 stages. The first age is the go-go years. You know, that's when you retire, and maybe you have kids or grandkids, and now you have something you haven't had in a long time. You've got some time. So you're spending time with those grandkids. You're taking them to theme parks. You're going out to lunch. You're going to take them to ice cream. Maybe you're picking them up at sports. You're spending time. It's go, go, go. And then as we get a little older, maybe things change. Maybe health issues arise, less energy, but you have kind of the middle years, not going as much years, or the no-go years. And then for some of us, as we get older, some of us transition into the more solo years, which can obviously be very difficult and difficult for family members. But those are the 3 stages. So when we're doing a retirement income plan, in the wheel below, we're looking at 5 steps that are fairly simple. Pieces of pie. The first one in the 1 o'clock position, moving clockwise, the first step is determine what you need versus what you want. It's good to know what you want, but let's start at what is your needs to get by, to do okay, to be content. And contentment is a big thing, being happy and content and having peace. Number 2, the next step would be to consider all 3 phases of retirement, the go-go years, the no-go years, and the solo years. Step 3 is determine your income from Social Security and pensions. And number 4, calculate the gap, which is real easy. And number 5 is how do we fill that gap? How do we eliminate that income gap? So how much annual income will you need? General guidelines, we've already covered this. This one here, the other one said 80 to 90. This says 60 to 90% of pre-retirement. These are general guidelines. It may not be true for you, but this is for the average person. Think about what expenses will change. Your house may already be paid off or your mortgage goes away. That may decrease. Healthcare costs might increase. That's a possibility for us. It includes costs for special retirement pursuits. Do you have a bucket list? Have you planned for that? Got to list your expenses. Accounting for healthcare costs. Most people in our area, what do they do at Medicare age? A lot of people, they stay on CHP, which has a relationship with Blue Cross Blue Shield to be a Medicare Advantage plan. I'm on CHP right now. I think it's a great network. Medicare prescription drug coverage. Medicare supplement plans. Medicare pays for limited long-term care expenses. A lot of people think that Medicare will pay for long-term care. It generally does not. You can get up to 100 days through Medicare for long-term care, but it is very, very difficult to get 100 days of long-term care from Medicare. That's very difficult. Some people ask me about long-term care. What is long-term care? Well, the way we would define that, first of all, is you would need help with 2 out of the 6 assisted daily living items. Using the bathroom, eating, dressing, transporting, going to the doctor, all those types of things, okay? When you need help with 2 of the 6 of those, they consider you and I needing help with long-term care. 70% of us over age 65 will need long-term care. The average cost of nursing home right now is $108,000 a year. What are your options? You can pay out of pocket, you can rely on Medicaid, or you can have long-term care insurance. Most people don't have long-term care insurance anymore because they keep raising the rates and it's so expensive. I hardly ever see it. There are some things that can be done. If you need help with it in that area, let me know. There are some things you can do. 3 challenges to building a plan. We got to account for inflation, taxes, and different types of risk. We got to account, let me say that again. We got to account for taxes, inflation, and different types of risk, which we'll cover in a moment when I start writing on this board. The unavoidable taxes, federal, state income tax, long-term capital gains, dividends. These are unavoidable taxes. Tax-free income from like municipal bonds may cause your Social Security income to be taxed. And then there are special rules for tax advantage accounts. For example, if you had the Roth IRA, you could take out money tax-free and it would not count towards the Social Security tax equation. Different types of risk: market risk, reinvestment risk, sequence of returns risk, interest rate risk. Most of us are taught to put money in 2 places. The first one is putting money in the bank. Now, putting money in the bank is good. It's safe. It's liquid. We're comfortable. We can get to it. But what's the problem with having too much money in the bank? Do they pay high rates of return? Maybe you have a CD. What is this? What do they used to call a CD? A certificate of what? Of disappointment, right? But it has gotten better. I mean, rates were low for decades. Very, very low. So having money in the bank is good, but we think if you have too much money in the bank and you're falling behind to inflation, that's a problem. So for example, if we just said inflation is 7%, I know it's higher, but if inflation is 7% and in checking and savings are paying you 1%, then you're losing 6% per year. So on $100,000, you're losing in purchasing power $6,000. Now, do you lose that 1 year or do you lose it every year? Every year. So the money just melts away. Just like, you have a piece of ice, spills in the kitchen, it immediately starts to melt. It's good to have money in the bank, but if you have too much of it, then you're falling behind to inflation. Your account doesn't go down, but you're losing purchasing power to inflation. So we want to try to stay up better with inflation so you don't fall behind. That's not what we're going to focus on for the rest of retirement income planning. I just wanted to touch on having enough money that's liquid. The other place we're taught to put money is in the stock market, right? And there's three types of market. There is an up market, a sideways stock market, and a down market. What if we had primarily in 2023? Does anybody know? What did we have last year? Was the market up or down last year? Down. What's it been this year?
Down.
It's been up since January 1st, okay? The S&P and Dow. We'll look at it in a second, okay? It's been up since then. But lately there's been a lot of volatility, right? What's it going to do next year? Anybody know? I don't know either, right? So we want to make sure we're planning. So if we could get rid of one of the three, the up, the sideways, or the down, which one would you want to get rid of? The down. So we have to plan for all. We want to plan for both, okay? Now, I think it's good to have money in the stock market. As an advisor, we use Schwab, okay? My office uses Schwab as a custodian, but I don't like when people have too much there because it could cause a problem depending on what they're trying to do. The other thing is the average market, looking at the stock market, if you go back to 1945, the average up market, called the bull market, has been, since 1945, has lasted 5 years. The average down market, the bear market, the average, not always, but the average is about 2 years. So the average bull market up is 5, average down market is 2. It's good to have money in the market, but again, if you have too much, that could be a problem. But it should be money, if you had money in the market and we were talking, and I said, how much of this money can you afford to lose? What would you say to me?
None.
If you said none, then I would ask you, do you think you have too much there? Okay. If I was building you a house, if I was a builder, what part of the home do you want to make sure to get correct so that it can withstand any storm? The foundation. So that's part of what you want to do with income planning, tied in with Social Security planning, is foundation building. Okay. It's really pretty simple, right? The older you and I get, we have less what? Somebody said money the other day. That's not the right answer. We have less time. The older you and I get, we have less time, right? So if we have less time, should 50, 60, and 70-year-olds be investing the same way as 20, 30, and 40-year-olds, right? If we were having a class, a workshop with your kids or grandkids, it would be entirely different. But since you and I, the older we get, we have less time, we have to make adjustments for that. So that's one of the things we want to do, is we want to build the foundation first. Now, let me show you our first board here. This is our first board. This is the Standard & Poor's. This is the stock market. This is the S&P 500 from 1999 through last fall. I get a new board every fall. I'll get one very soon. But this is 1999. And this doesn't matter if you have a whole lot more money or a whole lot less. This is just round numbers. So I use numbers like 100,000. I use numbers like 1 million. So if you put in 100,000 back here in the late 90s, and the first year it went up to about 112. You feeling pretty good the first year? Yeah, feeling pretty good. Now, is that money safe or guaranteed? Is it protected? Can you lose it?
Yes.
Did we lose it? Yes. What happened? 9/11 and the dot-com bubble. You remember that? It's already been a long time ago. Market over 2 years went down approximately 50%. Regardless of how well diversified you were or are, when the market goes down big, it usually carries everything. Large company stocks, small company stocks, precious metals, sometimes real estate, all those things can go down, even if you're well diversified. So then the market plummeted, and then it came back over 5 years, And then we got out here to 2008, 2009, and what happened there? What was that called? Yeah, we had a real estate bubble. We had the mortgage and the housing crisis. Then boom, over 2 years, the market went down 40 to 50%, depending how you were invested. Even if you have an advisor, if you have an account, if you have bonds, even bonds can go down. Bonds right now, a 20-year treasury bond is down 13% this year. So we're not going to get into people get confused with bonds. You don't have to worry about that. I'm just saying bonds are not guaranteed. I just want you to know that when they're in the mix. So the big question here is if you put in money here, you put in 100,000, then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 years later, you put in 100 and you have 82,000. So the question I have for you, you don't have to raise your hand or answer. If that happened again like that, where you went sideways or down over a 10-year period, would that affect the quality and the peace of mind that you have in retirement if you had to withdraw from an account like that? That's just what I want you to think about. So would you have time to wait 10 years for it to come back? Because I think that having money in the market's great, but I just don't think someone should have all their money there. I think people should be well balanced according to risk and according to how much income you need. So a couple things here also. How many of you believe the market could go down in the next couple of months or the next couple of years? How many of y'all believe that? And if that were to happen, how many of us would have to wait 10 years just to get back to where we are today? That's the thing I want you to think about. Because remember, as you're thinking about Social Security, you're going from accumulation and you're going to step over to distribution. And the strategies for distribution are much different. Let me show you a couple of reasons why. Here's a couple reasons why when you go to distribution, things change. One of the things here is called sequence of returns. Okay? Sequence of returns. So sequence of returns just means, do you know how the market's going to perform the next 10 or 20 years? You don't know, I don't know for sure. So we don't know the sequence or the order of what returns we're going to have when we retire. In other words, if all of us in this room, we're going to retire January 1st, okay? And then another group of people, we're going to retire, same size, January 1st. If they had a big up market for 3 years and we had a big down market, that is going to drastically affect the rest of your life. What that's called is a sequence of returns. So I'm going to just show you a real simple version of that. So if you had $1 million, again, it doesn't matter if you have a lot more or a lot less, and you said, Pete, I've been reading on the internet, and I can take out 4% per year is what I read. That's what a lot of people come up with. That means I could draw Social Security, have my pension, and I could draw $40,000 off my million and it not hurt it. But if the stock market goes down 50%, just for an example, like it did here and here twice in the last 25 years, what would that look like? Well, my million would drop to 500,000, and now I'd have to take 8% of my $500,000 to get the same 40,000. So here's what I want you to think. While you're working all through our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, before you retire, if the market's fluctuating, not a real big deal. Okay, as a matter of fact, when it goes down, it's good, because when you buy more, it's cheaper. But the problem is, if the market goes down, when you're withdrawing money, what's going to happen to your account if the market goes down in value and you have to increase the amount you have to take out? You know what all the computer models show you? It does this. Okay? So that's how people often run out of money, is when the market goes down big and then you have to withdraw from the account. So it wasn't a problem when you were working, true? But the problem is now, if you're going to be withdrawing from an account that has things going down, then you could prematurely run out of money if you were to face a bad sequence of years that were down. And if you don't even follow 100% of that, don't worry about it. I can help you with it later. All I'm trying to say is you want to be really careful how much risk you're taking, because if the market's down and you withdraw from it, you could have run out of money prematurely. All right, one other way to look at that, just real simple, just common sense. Because you and I have less time, if you have 100,000, you lose 50%, you got 50,000 left. What rate of return do you have to earn on your 50 to get back to 100? Put in 100, you lose 50%, you're down to 50,000. You got to earn 100% rate of return to get your 100,000 back. Is it easy for you and I at our age to earn 100% rate of return in a short period of time? No. So that's why we just talk about risk, okay? Just want to protect you as you're trying to coordinate everything with Social Security planning. The other thing, as we said, is bonds are not guaranteed. One of the things that you want to be careful of, and I'll list these mistakes. So one of the things we mentioned so far is taking too much risk. One of the things I forgot to tell you on taking too much risk is you might be thinking, Pete, do you have a simple rule of thumb to help me determine how much risk I should take for my age? And I do. This is what it's called. The rule of 100. The rule of 100 says you take 100 and you subtract your age. Let's say you're 65. 65% of your money, your age, should be safe and guaranteed. And then the 35% difference could be in good dividend-paying stocks. Okay, good stocks. So that's called the rule of 100. Do you have to use that rule? No, you don't have to. Okay, this is just an example to give you a rule of thumb because I want to give you information that you can take home and apply immediately to your life. So the rule of 100 says 100 minus your age. If you're 65, that's the percent that should be the foundation. The difference could be in good dividend paying stocks. We talked about having too much money in the bank. We call that too much lazy money. That's what we name it. It's lazy because it doesn't keep up with inflation. Here's another problem for folks is high fee accounts. High fee accounts, especially with the red line, the stock market. So let me give you a couple of examples of high fee accounts. One is called a variable annuity. Some annuities I think are good. Some I think are really bad. I personally don't like the variable annuity. Why? Because they generally are very high in fees. This is an account that Susie Orman, Clark Howard talk about, and they can be, not all of them, but most of them are very high in fees. This has just happened. As a matter of fact, there's a gentleman that came in today to see me, but it happens all the time. He had a variable annuity with $200,000 in it. And I said, do you know how much you're paying in fees on the account? He said, I do not know. I'm not sure what I'm paying, but I think I'm paying at least a $50 annual maintenance fee or management fee or administrative fee because it's on the statement. And I said, would you like to know what you're paying? So we called the company because he said, yes, I would like to know that. We got permission to talk, got him verified. Said, how much is the mortality and expense fee? How much is the sub-account fee? How much is the income rider fee? How much are other administrative fees? How about a death benefit rider? So we totaled everything up and the fees were about 4%. So 4% on $200,000 is he was paying $8,000 in fees. Now, do you think you pay that 1 year, or do you think you pay it every year?
Every year.
Every year. So if his account stayed even at $200,000 for 10 years, $8,000 would be how much times 10? 80,000. How about 20 years? 160,000. Yeah. Did you have any idea that a financial account could charge you $80,000 in fees on a $200,000 account? But you know what they said? They said he also has this income rider on here that gives guaranteed income for life. And that's a good thing. The problem is the way it works, because they would give him 5% of his account for life as income, guaranteed, but he had approximately 4% in fees. So I said, did you know that they would give you this $10,000 or $12,000 on their calculation, but they were going to charge you $8,000 in fees? Were you aware of that? He said, I had no idea of that. So one thing you want to make sure of, if you have a variable annuity, that's something we can look at for you, help you know what you're paying in fees, give you other alternatives. Now, once in a while, I'll meet somebody that has an old variable annuity and it has much lower fees. And so if I look at something like that and it's good to keep it, I'd be the first to tell you, keep this. I'd always tell you that, to keep this account. That's one example of a high fee account I think can be dangerous to you. Here's another account that's very common that has some high fees, okay? Mutual funds. Mutual funds. So mutual funds, a lot of people are not sure how those always work, but they only have to disclose about half their fees. The rest of them, with the variable annuity and the mutual funds, you got to read that book in the mail. What's that called? A prospectus, right? Now, if you have trouble sleeping, you will want to pull that prospectus out, right? 600 pages, size 6 font. That'll help you out. So the prospectus is where you'd have to read all about the fees. They're not all going to be on the statement. So the issue with mutual funds, there's a couple of issues. When you have mutual funds, you have your money pooled in combination with other people, invested mutually, and then the manager buys stocks, whatever the purpose is of that mutual fund. The mutual fund may have many, many positions, okay? And every year, there's a certain amount of positions that are turned over. There's something called a turnover ratio, which we can run a report called a financial audit, which is like an x-ray on your stock market-based account, and find these kinds of things out. But a turnover ratio would be like if you were in business and you had 100 employees and you had to replace 50 of them, would that be a lot of work? That would be a lot of work, okay, and expense. So a 50% turnover ratio is just an example of what that means. Your mutual fund manager is changing over 50% of the stocks and bonds every single year. The other issue with mutual funds is we see people that come in with a number of different mutual funds and they own good stocks in there, but they own them a multitude of times. They own Microsoft, but they own it 9 times. They own Apple, they own it 12 times. They own Philip Morris, they own it 6 times. So it's good to own those stocks, but when you have all these different things and these fees, there are usually some things that we can do with individual stock positions that are much, much better and much more efficient, especially when you get over a few $100,000. When I'm covering a stock market-based account, we're talking about high fee accounts like the variable annuity, like mutual funds. If it's helpful to you because you can the program, we would be glad to run an audit report on your stock market-based account if that would help you. This would tell you exactly what you own, how much rate of return it's been providing, how does it compare to competitors, to peers, what fees are you paying, and what is your turnover cost. Okay, that's in a financial audit. All right, let's just keep going. So we've looked at the red line. It's good to have some money there. We've talked about having money in the bank. This is the blue line. And the takeaways is really what we're talking about eventually leading up is to being balanced so that when you're doing your Social Security planning and which decision you decide to make there, you can properly make the right decision for your other income. So the blue line is money in the bank if it was earning 3%. So if you put $100,000 in 99 and it earned 3%, it would be about $200,000 today. So what's the takeaway there? Always have enough in the blue line for emergencies, for his health care as you and I get older, to help a loved one, and so forth. But don't keep too much there. Because if you have too much there, you have too much lazy money, you're falling behind to what? Inflation, right? So for the guys in the room, look at an example of inflation. What did an F-150 cost back here in 99 or 2000? How much did an F-150 cost? 20, 25,000? What about today? What do they cost today? 35? No, 60, 70. Somebody told me they spent 100,000 for a truck the other day. So inflation is an issue. The big takeaway here is don't keep too much in any one particular line. You want to be balanced. Have enough that's safe and liquid, but don't keep too much that's there. And then the other line, when we're looking at balancing money, is the green line. So let's talk about how the green line works. Red is the stock market. That's good. Money in the bank's good. Here's how the green line works. When the stock market goes up, if you had any money in the green line the last 25 years, by the way, you would not have lost any money. If you have money in the green line, when the market goes up, your account will go up. When the stock market goes down, your account stays even. Now, how many of you would be okay in the room if the market went down 50% and you didn't lose any money? Would you be okay with that for some of that money? That's how the green line works. When the market goes up, you go up. Market goes down, this account stays even. And then when the market starts to go back up again, this locks in interest each year along the way and guarantees it. Right here, when you put in money, when the market crashed in 9/11 and the dot-com bubble, you would not have made any money, but you would not have lost any money. As a matter of fact, I have a lady I've worked with since over 25 years. She had some money in the green line back here in the 90s. And she told me, Pete, after I retired, I'd meet him for lunch once in a while, and we would look at pictures of our travels, we would look at pictures of our kids and grandkids, but sometimes we talked about money. And in the late 90s, I don't know if you remember, but the market was going crazy right before the dot-com bubble. And she said, I had some money in the red line too, but I had some in the green. And she said, the money I had in the green line, when the market plummeted, I didn't make any money, but I didn't lose anything. But my friends were playing all the hot stocks, and they lost a bunch of money on everything. Like I said, I think that's good for part of your money, just not for all of it. And then when the market came back, they were crawling out of the ditch, but in my green line account, I was making money along the way, locking in the gains. And then, of course, we got out to the 08-09 housing and mortgage crisis, and the market plummeted again, and her money was safe. So that's the way the green line has worked. Historically, the green line has averaged about 4 to 7%, and I'll tell you the pros and cons of the green line in just a second, okay? Because there's nothing perfect out there. So let me tell you what the green line is called. The green line is called a fixed indexed annuity account. Now you might be thinking, well, Pete, you said a bad word, didn't you? You said the word annuity. But this is not like the variable annuity. This works completely different. It does not have the high risk and the fees. So let me tell you who offers the green line, the fixed index annuity. Big, strong, safe insurance companies. Big, strong, safe companies that protect your home, your car, your life, your health, everything. But again, like I said, everything has trade-offs. So let me tell you the two trade-offs to the green line. The first one is there is a time commitment. The time commitment is 5 to 10 years. But if you want to take money out along the way, you can take out 10% each year. So you do have a time commitment. After the time commitment's up, you can take all your money out. You can move it somewhere else. You could go buy a cabin. You could buy a car. You could buy a beach house, whatever it is. You can pull all your money out. If you pass away during the time commitment is erased. It goes straight to your beneficiary. When you have beneficiaries listed, that's non-probate. So there is a time commitment. That's trade-off number one. Time commitment is 5 to 10 years, but you can take money out along the way. How much can you take out per year? 10%, right? Here's the second thing. Just like this room has a floor and a ceiling, this account has a floor and a ceiling. Your floor is 0. You can never lose money. Okay, every fixed index annuity account has what's called a cap. It has a ceiling. So let's just say the ceiling, the cap, is 9%. Some can be higher, some can be a little lower, but that's called a cap. So let me tell you how a cap works. If it's with the S&P 500, which is what that red line is, if the market's up 5%, they will give you 5%. If it's up 8, they will give you 8. If it's up 9, they'll give you 9. But if the market was up 11, how much are they going to give you? 9. Now you know what the pros and cons are of this account. So that's how a cap works. You do have a time commitment. If you pass away, it's erased. When the time commitment's up, you can take all your money out, or you can leave it there. You can withdraw 10% along the way for income if you want. Number 2, you have a cap or a ceiling. I gave you an example. You can earn anything up to that. The company will give you the full rate of return up to that cap. If it earns more than that cap, you earn what the cap is. In this example was 9%. All right, so let me list out, there's a couple things. If you wanted some money in a green account for balance, there would be some things you do want, and there would be some things you don't want. Let me list those for you, okay? You would want to work with an A-rated company. I'll just boil it down and tell you the things you would want. You would want to work with only A-rated companies. These companies have billions, okay? So an A-rated company or better. Number 2, most of these accounts have no fees. So you would want no fees. Is that really true? Yes, it's true. Why is that? Well, when you have a time deposit, you forego fees. If you have a CD at the bank and they pay you interest, do you pay any fees for the CD? Does the bank still make money? It's the same way with the insurance company. Okay, same principle there. You want A-rated companies. You want no fees. You don't want anything longer than 5 to 10 years. You want to stick with those time commitments, okay? Like I said, when you have a time commitment, most of the time you exchange fees for a time commitment. Let me give you one example when you would have a fee. If you said, Pete, I want to have some guaranteed income for life that I could never outlive, where if I spent my account to zero, they would keep paying me. Let me say that again. If you want a guaranteed income for life, where if you spent down your account to zero, they would keep paying you a monthly income, that's possible. They charge a fee for that. It's around 1% or 1.2%. That's called guaranteed income for life. Let's review some top of the problems. Some of them we've talked about, some of them we haven't. We'll touch on these, and then we'll wrap everything up at the end. No particular order, but the first thing we talked about is if you're taking too much risk, and we looked at the rule of 100, 100 minus your age. That was one thing we looked at. So however you're doing your planning, by yourself, with someone else, or if you're going to want some help, these are the things you want to look at and try to make sure you're accounting for. Number two, you want to try to avoid high fee accounts like a variable annuity and many mutual funds, depending on the size of your account. Once you get over several $100,000, it's easier, it's much better to own individual stocks. There's less turnover, there's less trading fees, there's less expenses. It's just a lot cleaner, a lot simpler, and more efficient. Avoid high fee accounts. Number three, we talked about if you have too much lazy money in the bank. Have enough there, but don't have so much there. Sometimes I sit down with people and they have so much in checking and savings, they're just losing so much money. They could be earning much better interest somewhere. Here's something we haven't looked at. This is called the income cliff. What is that? If you're single and you're thinking, we were talking, visiting over coffee, and you said, Pete, I'm concerned, I'm gonna have Social Security, or maybe I have a small pension, maybe I don't, but I don't think I'm gonna have enough guaranteed income. You know, I want something more guaranteed. Because when I retire, my income is going to go from here, it's going to drop way down here. Then it's kind of falling off the cliff. So we can plan for that and balance money and make sure you have enough guaranteed income. Here's a problem for married people. Let's say you have Bob and Mary, and they retire, and they have $100,000 of income. You may have a lot more, you may have less. This is, again, just an example. So Bob and Mary are in the go-go years. They're having a great time. She's spending time with kids, grandkids. They're doing things, they're having a blast. Everything's fine while both of them have each other. But what happens sometimes? Unfortunately, Bob passes away. Bob had a pension, Bob had Social Security, Mary had a small pension, and she had Social Security. So when Bob passes, she's going to retain the higher of the two. True, right, for Social Security? But she's going to lose his pension in this example because we see it all the time. And the income drops from $100,000 down to $50,000. So Mary's income gets cut in half. So your income, if it's a lot higher, you could just do the math, or if it's a lot lower. But if something happens to Bob, does Mary still want to travel and maybe do things with kids and grandkids? Does she still want to do that? Does she still need a new car once in a while or a new roof? So this can be a big problem when someone passes away. We call this the income cliff problem. What can we do about it? Sometimes we can do nothing, but for a lot of people, we can help if we can get at it early. Because if we can properly balance money between here, then we can solve some of that problem so she has guaranteed income for the rest of her life. Or if you're single and need more guaranteed income. That's called the income cliff. What's the other thing? Making sure you maximize Social Security. You want to maximize Social Security. You want to avoid making a mistake there. We'd be glad to run a report for you if that would help you. Another mistake, not doing tax planning for retirement. Have you sat down, if you have IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, have you sat down with your tax return and a cup of coffee or tea and looked at your accounts and said, hey, if I were to convert this much of my taxable money to tax-free Roth, I could do it this much and I'd only have to pay this taxes, and then I could do the same thing next year, and I could do the same thing the following year. Have you ever done that? This is really, really important for you, because if you don't do that, you might just end up paying a lot more in taxes, okay? That's what we're just trying to make sure we can help you with. And if you want some help, I'll help you with that. But if you're doing it yourself, that's fine. Just make sure you do it. Just look at the income tax brackets, look at your return, look at your accounts, and it's not hard. It's easy to do. You can see how much you could convert per year, and you pay this much in tax, and then you could do it again next year. It's not that complicated. So look at the tax-free Roth IRA conversion planning. The other thing is, I would say, if you have a stock market-based account, not getting a financial audit done is a mistake. Why? Because we want to see exactly what you're paying in fees. If you have a variable annuity, I can help you get all the fees for that. If you have mutual funds, I can show you what things you own, how it's performed, what are the turnover ratio, the trading, the duplication, all that stuff. It's like a financial x-ray. So here are those things. These are very common problems. Too much risk, out of balance in the rule of 100, having high fee accounts like variable annuities and mutual funds, too much lazy money in the bank, the income cliff problem, whether you're single or married, not enough guaranteed income. If you're married, what happens if he dies first? Or what happens if she dies first? What does my income look like? Social Security maximization, we'd be glad to try to help you with that. Tax planning, and a financial audit, which tells you all the expenses and trading fees that you're paying. Okay, those are the biggest mistakes that I see. So we're going to summarize and then do a short questionnaire also. But I want you to think with anything that you own right now, there are three features of it: liquidity, safety, and growth. So any account, you think of any of your financial accounts right now that you're going to be planning with Social Security, whether it's money in the banks or investments or whatever it is, there's three features of everything: liquidity, safety, and growth. Well, guess what? Any account that we talk about, you can have two of the three things. So if you were to rank these, which one is most important to you? What's number two and what's number three? Because you can have two of the three. How many of y'all have gotten brand new tires in the last couple of years? Right? You ever watch what they do when you change your tires? Right? They take the old tire off. You've watched this, right? You're there drinking coffee, looking through the window. Unless it's at Costco, you'd have to go outside and go around, right? But if you're watching them do your tires, they take off the old tire off the rim, take the wheel off the car, take the tire off, put the new tire on. But what do they do before they put the wheel back on your car or truck? They balance it. What happens if you don't balance your tires?
They
wear out quicker, maybe get worse gas mileage, bumpier ride, right? Well, with your money, it's the same thing. We just find a lot of people are out of balance, just like the tires. But if you're out of balance with your money, your tires don't wobble on the road. You can't necessarily feel it. That's why it's important to look at it. So let's just talk about a couple things as we tie all this together with Social Security planning. So there are four things up top that you can do with money. Number one, you can spend it and take it as income. Does that sound good? That sounds good, right? What's the alternative? Pass it on to family. How many of y'all excited about that? Are you good? Okay, a couple. A lot of people say now, they might take off their glasses, they say, Pete, I'm going to tell you right now, I ain't that worried about leaving a ton of money behind. I do think it's good to leave money to your kids and grandkids. I do. But I know most people have worked all these years. They want to have a good time. I understand that. Then you can invest with risk to principal, which is a good thing. You can also invest without risk to principal. So there's four things you can do with your money. So let's look at the pros and cons of each bucket. This bucket plan kind of ties planning together with your Social Security plan. Hopefully this will help you categorize things and make it simpler for you. That's the whole idea here. Taking the boring and the complex and making it simpler for a worry-free retirement. So in the blue bucket, money in the bank, what's the advantage of having money in the bank? Checking and savings. It's liquid, so you can write down liquid. What's another advantage of money in the bank? Safe, right? Do they still give you glasses and toasters like they used to years ago? Don't do that anymore, right? My bank used to have cookies on Friday and coffee up there. You know what's out there now? Nothing, right? Things changed. I get a lollipop, the little, and the small ones. That dum-dum pop is real small. Yeah. That's right. What's the downside of money in the bank?
Low growth.
Yeah, lazy money, low growth. There's just nothing perfect. Just like people, none of us are perfect, right? But we just want to look at the trade-offs and then plan accordingly. Money in the green line with a big, strong, safe insurance company. The plus is the money's safe and guaranteed. Another plus is you can earn a very fair rate of return. This is not money you're trying to get super wealthy on. This is money that you're at a different stage of life and you don't want to go backwards. And I practice what I preach. This is what I do for myself. It's balance. What's the downside of the green line? Is it 100% accessible at all times? No. You can take out how much per year? 10%. And if you die, how much of it goes to your beneficiary? 100% right away. No more time commitment. Money in the stock market, over to the right. What's the advantage of money in the market? Has the potential to go up, right? It's also liquid. See? Money in the bank, you get liquidity and safety. You get liquidity and safety, you get no growth. Money in the green line, not 100% liquid, but you get safety and growth. Money in the stock market, you get liquidity and growth, but you get guarantees. No guarantees in the stock market. You have the potential to go up, you have the potential to lose, but generally it's liquid. So that's what we try to do. Here's the whole plan. Whether you're doing this yourself or you have someone, this is the whole plan. As you and I have less time, if you're in retirement and you need extra income, if the stock market, the red line, was way up and you needed to pull money to live on or go on vacation, we would pull money from the red line while it's way up. If the stock market was way down, do you want to pull money from the stock market red line? No, because you don't want to run out of money prematurely. That's the sequence of returns risk. We would pull from the green or the blue. See, when you balance your tires, it's good for your vehicle. When you balance your money with your Social Security planning, you have different options to pull from that will protect you whether the market's way up or way down. Let's just do a questionnaire together real quick and then we'll be done. Number one, I'm concerned I don't know the best Social Security strategy to choose. That's something we could try to help you with if you wanted help. Or if you're doing it by yourself, here you have the questions organized. Number two, I'm concerned I'm taking too much risk in the stock market. I'm out of balance with the rule of 100. That was 100 minus my age. The age is your safety percentage. I'm concerned that future taxes could erode my IRAs or 401k when I begin withdrawals. We'd want to look at the Roth IRA conversion strategy there. Number four, I'm concerned I'll have to go back to work either full-time or part-time in retirement. Number five, I'm concerned I have too much lazy money in the bank falling behind to inflation. Number six, I'm concerned I may be paying too much in fees, or you don't know what you're paying in fees. I'm concerned what will happen to my spouse if you're married, if I were to die first, having the income cliff problem, or if you're single and you don't feel like you have enough guaranteed income. Number eight, I'm concerned I haven't saved enough to live comfortably through retirement. Thanks for watching. Now you have a much better handle on Social Security and how it'll affect you or you and your spouse. If you're already retired or retiring soon and you have at least $500,000 of investable assets, then click the link below to schedule your worry-free retirement call.